All right, so I want to make this the quickest, most useful video for doing brakes on your 2014-ish Grand Cherokee. And I'm going to give you the highlights here. So first thing I want to start off with is just an overview. We're going to look at these. So let's take a peek. And while we're doing so, I'm going to talk about some torque specs. The wheels, for example, those are 130 foot-pounds. In the front, we're going to be dealing with a couple bolts here. One, to do these brakes, you're going to want to pop these little rubber bumpers out here. And inside that hole, there's an Allen. An 11 millimeter fits the best, but I actually don't have an 11 millimeter Allen, so a 10 actually works okay. And that is going to get this part of the caliper off. Additionally, you're going to have to move this clip. The torque on those bolts are 45 foot-pounds. That'll get this caliper. I'll get it compressed. I'll show you. Then if you're going to do rotors, which I am, you'll need to do that caliper bracket. Back here, these are 21 millimeters. And the torque spec on that is 125 foot-pounds. Those are fairly accessible. I'm just going to go ahead and set this down for a second. Let's go check out the back. All right, so similar. Got a little plug to pop out. And these were 20 foot-pounds on this. Let me jump back in there. Let me get my light in the right orientation here. Yeah, you should be able to see that now. All right, so looking at that Allen, it's 20 foot-pounds. All right, and I just want to double check. So that Allen is a 7. Obviously, there's gonna be one more right there. And then in here, those caliper bracket bolts right to the left there, that is an 89 foot-pound and it's an 18 millimeter. So basically with that and some additional tools, you can do this job. The lug nuts are 22, at least on this particular model. Let me show you some of the tools I got set up. So I'm sorry if you got to do stuff by hand, but if you can, yank the lug nuts with that. Like I said, 22. You're going to want a pretty chunky pry bar, breaker bar, sorry. Because these bolts are pretty tight. Well, actually, all those caliper brackets are pretty tight. Get a good 3/8 ratchet. You got probably a couple different screwdrivers you want. This one's pretty hardy. I'm going to show you a trick with that one. You'll need a pick like this. And this was a little bit annoying. I would rather use a 7 millimeter socket on a nice ratchet, but you'll find on the back you don't have enough depth to get that style socket in. Now, if you had a stubby socket, you could, but if you don't, you might need a 7 millimeter Allen key. And like I said, a 10 Allen socket, but an actual 11 would be better. But a 10 will work. I verified it. And then you'll need some brake-specific paste. Don't be using anything silicone-based. It's not good for the rubber seals in the caliper. It'll seize up. You'll need a hammer, and you'll need something to compress the caliper. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. My preferred method is actually the screwdriver, but I score up the caliper. I score up the rotor doing that. And so if you're reusing your rotors, probably you're not going to want to do this. How I'm going to show you, I'll show you a different way. All right. So jumping into it, what we'll do, I'll pop those caps, right? We'll get those couple Allens out, right? Allen. And then a lot of times what I'll do is you'll see what I'm going to do in a second. I'm going to put the screwdriver in here. In fact, I'll show you that right now. All right, I prefer, you got to get a pretty big, long one. And if you get that screwdriver just right, if I can get my lighting just right, you can see where I'm at here. If you get it in there, kind of in between the fins of the caliper, or of the rotor, I'm misspeaking today. Change it like this. You can see my spotlight. Okay, and I'm basically just prying on this. Now what that's doing, as you can see, is it's shifting the caliper outward, which is actually pushing these pistons in. And if you really wanted to get nasty, you could put it in there. But this will at least get it started, and it's already pretty difficult, so I may resort to another technique. So that's the first thing I'm going to do here. Then I'm going to get those 11 millimeter Allens out, pop this clip out, get the caliper swung out of the way, and then I can pull the pads out. Then I'll go with those 21s and get this bracket off. And then nothing really holds this rotor except rust and this little O-ring, right? So you're gonna watch, I'll walk you through how to do it, but it doesn't really make sense for me to be talking. So I'm gonna telling you what I'm gonna do right now. And then all that stuff will be apart, and then we'll do a walkthrough on how to reassemble. Alrighty, I gave you all the info you needed. If you're a professional, if you're a novice or a DIY, stick with me right here. So I'm trying to pry that caliper like I showed you, but it's definitely gonna be a little bit of a struggle. It's okay if it turns the steering wheel. That's fine. Yeah, those are gonna be a little tough. But I did get quite a bit out of that. It's probably pretty close. So I'm gonna run it. Now I'm gonna pop that other cap off that you saw. You don't really need to be seeing what I'm doing back there because it's pretty simple. The next step, I'm gonna load up that 10, which should actually be an 11, remember? Get those cracks loose. Sometime I'll switch over to power tools, but in this case I won't. It's not really going to save that much time. And that one's loose. Okay, that one's loose. Now, I believe you'll be able to see that there's a wheel speed sensor wire. You just want to kind of pop that off. You just don't want it putting too much tension on the wire. And then, right now, back of the caliper should be loose. I might just have to push those bolts out away from the knuckle just a bit. And they sit kind of tight because they're guide pins, so they're sitting in rubber. Now it should come off, but it won't because that clip, remember? So let's spin it back this way so you can see that better. That's like an anti-rattle clip. Okay. And these can be a little bit of a challenge. So like what I did on this last one, I work on prying this out. See, it can be a little bit tough, but if you get it just right, you can walk that clip out like that. I'm gonna hold it up to you and show you. This little tab right here sits in a specific spot in there. So what you're really trying to do is sort of work that tab out of its little spot in the caliper, right? So this is junk, by the way. We've got new ones, so. All right, and then, so basically, come off. Okay, and this is where I make sure the wire gets separated. And I like to set this up here for now without messing up that backing plate, so just gotta be a little careful. Then this pad will come out just by prying, like that. So here's our old pad, although I've already got the piston pushed back, but I'm gonna show you another way to do it. I like these. You could use big channel locks. You could use a C-clamp, but if you use a C-clamp, just remember it's an aluminum caliper. It's not really all that strong, but I'm gonna just squeeze the pad. You know, the back of the jaw's on the caliper and the front's on the pad. And I'm just gonna tighten this up a bit and squeeze it just a couple times. It's already maxed out, so it's back all the way. This is how you could push that back without even making one mark on the rotor. This rotor's getting changed, so I'm okay with being a little more harsh, right? Then I'm gonna take this pad, set it aside, which it's really junk, but I do generally want to keep track of where this little squealer is. So if you notice, the squealer, there's none on the inner, there's one on the outer. And that makes sense, because normally when you turn the rotor forward, if the squealer were to start touching, because your pad lining is low, like you can see, this one's fairly low, it's about 2 millimeters. If the squealer starts to touch, and let's say the squealer's at the top like this, a lot of times they'll rip it off, and then the customer will say, oh, the noise went away, I'm good to go, and they go metal to metal. So general rule of thumb, it actually pushes it in towards the pad, but just keep track, it's on the bottom, okay? The other side was on the bottom as well. So, get these pads over here, position tools. Now this is going to sit here, but what I need to do is go in the back and get those 21s, and there's a couple ways I can do that. I've got a 21 right here. I'll initially crack them loose. These ones, though, they tend to be Loctited. So they get, you know, I'll crack them loose by hand, but if I can't spin them out easily by hand, let me change over to a gun just for time savings. Pretty much there. Alright, now this caliper bracket's out. You can see this caliper bracket is fairly clean. I got just a little bit of cleaning up to do where those pads sat, but minimal. Alright, so set that down. In fact, I'm going to set it down right here. And these bolts I'm just going to lay back through the knuckle. They actually didn't really have Loctite on them, so they wouldn't have been that bad by hand. This pick is a tool I don't usually use with brakes, but what I found on this one, where this caliper, where this rotor sits on, there's an O-ring in here, and I have to just gently pull that O-ring out. The purpose of this O-ring is really to hold the rotor in place on the assembly line before the wheel is there. So if this O-ring gets messed up, it's not that big of a deal. It's not to seal the hub from water or whatever, because it doesn't make sense. They're worried about water getting in here, but there's big holes at the studs. That's not its purpose. All right, so technically, actually, that O-ring doesn't need to go back on, but I'm going to put it back on because I can. Now I'm going to smack this rotor from the backside because it's junk anyway. I didn't give you rotor specs as far as thickness goes, because if you want it, it's actually on the inside edge. 30.5 millimeter is the minimum thickness, but again, this is a friend, and he doesn't want to goof around. He wants to do pads, rotors, hook it all up. Now, when you get the rotors out of the box, remember these need to be cleaned, and I've actually already cleaned all the oil off of these. They oil them for corrosion protection. You can't have oil on a braking surface. Clean all that junk off there. O-ring. Okay, come on, baby. Come on, little sweetie. Okay, so get the rotor pushed right on there. Really good. Nice and seated. And then you should be able to get that O-ring in its little groove, and you'll see that'll hold it in place. Well, struggling a bit. But it's not that hard, I'm just struggling. Okay, so that is all the way back in its groove. Now, it's feeling pretty good. All right, but again, it's not a real big deal here. Okay, now we got a couple options. One, I'm gonna clean that caliper bracket up really quick, which I forgot. I gotta grab my wire brush from the other side. So everybody's methods vary, but because this bracket didn't really need that much, I'm mostly cleaning dust more so than rust. If you're in a rust belt area, I'm sorry, I feel for you, but I'm not. All right, so with that pretty clean, go ahead and breathe in some of the dust. It's not asbestos though, don't let anybody fool you. They don't have asbestos anymore. I can get this hung back on here. And douse that with brake clean. Great idea. I'm happy with how it's cleaned up. Now, so what I'm going to do for you, I'm just going to buzz these up to keep this fast. Then I'm going to come back and torque stuff after the fact, okay? Just to save the time. All right, now that that's on, I've got the correct pads ready to go. One of these pads is easy, one of these pads sucks. This one with these little pins, that's the one that has to go up in here. So when I go to do that, I'm lining these little springs up with the holes in the caliper piston. I'm gonna say, you can most likely see that. Make sure they're lined up pretty good, and then I should be able to just smack it in. But I won't lie, these are kind of annoying. Like that, you know? And then the outer one's much easier, but this is where I like to take my silicone paste and I just very lightly grease up the points that are going to contact that bracket because it needs to slide in the bracket nicely. This is actually what you could get away with a petroleum-based lubricant here. You could even do anti-seize if you wanted, but doesn't seem like there's any reason to. So I'm just going to slide that one into where it goes. It's a good time to inspect the bracket. This bracket was super clean, so I really didn't do any prep work on it. Because I'm in Southern California and the cars don't rust here. At least in this area. Maybe at the beach. Now I'm about to put this back on, but it's already kind of turned around. So I got to get it in the right area. But what I found on the last time, what I like to do, I'm going to pop these guide pins right out. Right? I'm going to hold on to these. I'm coming back to them. But I can get this in place fairly easily. Like that. Like so. Clip in that wheel speed sensor. And then for these, I'm going to go ahead and clean them up. Which, again, this thing's really clean already. I've worked on the rusty stuff too, but I'm going to take advantage of what I got. Then I'm going to slide these back in the holes where they go. And I like to work them around a little bit just to better distribute that grease. Now these are the ones you got to be especially careful about using only disc brake caliper lube because those are contacting rubber seals in that caliper bracket. And if it's petroleum, the petroleum will swell the rubber and it'll end up seized up. So caliper grease, my favorite right there is silicone paste. I've seen rubber grease, there's a few options, right? So now with these, again, I'm gonna snug them up for you. I told you the torque spec, 45. Those big ones I popped in with the gun there, those are 125. And you can come back and get them after the fact. But I'll probably tighten them up while you're right there. That's just me by the time I gotta actually go change the batteries in my torque wrench, so it's gonna take me a minute. It's a problem with digital, so he's dead. So, pretty close. There's a lot of schools of thought. More grease is better, but for me, I grease the points that need grease, and I don't grease anything else. But I can give you a little bit of the ideas on why people grease other places. One, they don't know, or two, they do know. I got to do that clip, but sometimes people will grease where this pad is going to contact this caliper, and that would actually help with some of a slight extra bit of dampening for vibration and noise. Remember, this has this big anti-noise measure, this big old bracket, and so I really don't think we're going to have any issues with noise. I'm running ceramic pads. You know, I don't anticipate any squeaks. So when you go to put this on, this is a little tricky. Going to land it up here and then hook this in. I believe you'll be able to see that, but just in case, I think I will zoom in a bit. All right, get zoomed in, baby. Okay, because this was a little tricky. All right, hook this end in here, kind of hook that in there, then I'll work this forward, and I need to get it like about there. And then what I actually found, using the handle of the hammer, you could get it in like that. Now that's not finalized, but it's close. This one's sitting good, this one's not. Okay, now it's perfect. Let me show you so you don't think I'm full baloney. Okay, here you go. Get on back down there. Show you what I was doing here. All right, look at that little retainer, how it's over to the left and it's really locked in a groove. There's a groove right there. Same with this one. Can't get the angle right with my tripod, but see, that's got to be all the way over there. These need to be here. Okay, seeing this stuff messed up. So Make sure you get it right. And basically, minus torquing, that is the front done. Right, here we go on the back. So remember those caps, right? I'm about to pop those caps off. A little bit tricky. Okay, I'm going to use the pocket screwdriver, which I didn't list as an essential, but it does help. It does help. Okay. All right, cool. And next, this is a little bit of a pain, right? This is that one that's a 7. I'm going to change it over. Put the 10 on. Hook up the 7. And the top one, no problem. All right, crack it loose, not really that tight. The bottom one, you will find there's just not enough room. All right, I'm actually going to show you that real quick. Let me jump it right in there. All right, so as you can see, back in here, I'm sorry. So this is the reason why I'm doing a couple of things I'm doing. It's a little bit similar with that 18 there as well. All right, so back to business here. Get this baby rolling quick. So for that lower one, unfortunately, I'm going to the old school. And here we are. And these don't have a lot of leverage, so it does hurt a bit. But you gotta sacrifice your body for something. For the greater good. All right, and then again, how it's inconvenient with the Allen key, it slows the whole process down. And I'm sorry for that. And then, before I get too far, if you'll recall, I'll do the same thing back here. That's the fastest way to compress a piston. If you don't like it, don't. Just slide it off. Use your C-clamp. You want to be really good. You want to be a really good boy. Not that I assumed your gender. You can actually go ahead and use your caliper piston compressor, which I could use, but I just like what I like, All right, this one is really a pain, bit by bit here. The other thing I might be able to do is take off the whole caliper as an assembly, but I find that just slows things down. It makes it a little more bulky, awkward. Kind of takes a lot more coordination to do. All right, so it's got to be getting close now. Okay. On that top one, I will take advantage of Le Ratchet, invented by Snap-on, by the way. Before Snap-on, there was just wrenches. Okay, so that one's pretty much there. Again, the bottom one, just got to go by hand like this. Totally sucks. If I was going to be doing these a lot, I would take that 7 socket and I'd grind it down flat. Make it just enough to get a bite on that bolt, but short enough to be able to fit it between the bolt and the control arm. Ooh. This one's a little rough. So sorry for the delay. I told you it'd be the fastest video. Gotten older since I started it. Right. We're loose. Once again, we're fighting this bracket, but we will prevail on that. I'm actually going to pry it over first. Like this. Like that right there. There's also trash. Okay. So once again, I'll just get one step ahead. I'll pull these guide pins out. Remember, these are the ones we got the grease. I'll slide this up here. I'm actually going to leave the pad, just leave it for a second. This pad I'll just pop out. And now I'm going to change over to the breaker bar with an 18 and get those bolts that are in the back. Even that lower one is tight to the control arm. I went to do this with a ratchet. I couldn't fit the ratchet, but I could fit the breaker bar. The breaker bar is just a little thinner. So that's the go-to. Okay. Get those babies loose. Now, I couldn't get power tool back there, so this is all by hand. But I could do both at once. And it does help. Okay, get that bracket. Now remember, I'm going to clean that up. But for now, we're ready for that rotor. And just like the other one, my pick is right here. Just work that O-ring out. Okay, hold on to that. The martillo. That one was a little tight on the parking brake shoes, by the way. If you want to inspect your parking brake shoes, now's the time. Everything looks good in there. I'm happy with it. Now, I've got a rotor that I've already cleaned, including this parking brake surface in here. Already cleaned all that. Go on, feels good. O-ring. Now there will be a little bit of drag on this one because the parking brake shoes. Don't try to do this with the parking brake applied. It won't come off. Ask me how I know. All right, so that bracket, quick cleanup. Similar. We're not worried about the whole thing. We're worried about where the pads sit. Yeah, again, this thing's really good. This thing's well taken care of. I mean, it's lived a good life here in SoCal. So spin those bolts in. These were the ones, they were 89 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna give it the, all right, truth be told, you're not gonna get a torque wrench in after the fact on this one. So I do have to do that, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get them pretty snug with this. I'll grab my 1/2 inch knot digital and I'll get a quick 89 on these. Yeah, see that lower one's gonna be kind of a pain in the butt. I could use a crowfoot at a 90, which I might actually have to do. I gotta tell you. In 1 second. So here we go. But again, I'm concerned I might not be able to get that depth in there. So no judgment if you just tighten these, all right? But I'm trying to be really good boy. Okay, 89. Hook up 89 for me here. There's 90 minus 1 is 89. Yeah, that lower one is not going to happen. This upper one. Okay, for that lower one, this is my rig. 1/2 inch to 3/8 to a crow's foot. To be what it is. Now, if you wanted to get really technical, I'd actually need to do some math here, and it's not happening. So, if this was a cylinder head bolt or something, you could go ahead and do the math because, well, let me show you in a second. So that went a little further. If it's like this, I have not added any distance between the handle and the head, so that would be fine. If it's like this, that would actually be decreasing it down there. This would be about the same. This makes the wrench longer, so my reading would be different. Okay, if you really want to get technical, that's the truth. But we're not even going to spend any more time on that. So again, the brake pad has to get popped into the caliper. Pop that out. This is trash. Line this up really good. And popcorn huevos. That means with breakfast, I believe. And then outer one, right? I just will hit those little points that this is going to slide at. Okay, loop it around here. Cool. Same with this. You could grease them first and then get grease all over the linings if you want the thing to not stop and people to die. You could do that if you want. Now I'll get it in place. And remember, I already compressed the piston, okay? But you know how to do that now. I know you do, because we did it over there, remember? All right, now with this, same. These were so clean. I'm just impressed. Grease them up. Work them around a bit, because again, we're greasing the guide pin up against an O-ring here. Okay, and we're pretty good. Now I was thinking to keep this video pretty tight, I may actually just get this started and then come back and do the torque on these, because remember I got to thread that one in like pretty much the whole way, and getting a torque wrench on that is going to be interesting. So I'm not exactly sure how long that's going to take. So I'm going to snug this upper one up. I'm going to start that lower one. We'll get that clip on there. And then you'll just know that I am going to do the final torque after the video ends, okay? Let's see, like, this one's even a little tricky to get started. You just don't have any way to grip it. This hasn't been my favorite set of brakes to do, I will admit. No brakes are really that hard, and there's ones much harder, but this has not been a real particularly enjoyable job for me. All right. Okay, so that one's good to start. Remember, got to do this, so I'm going to show you one more time. All right, let's start with getting it the right direction. That would help. Okay, so if I start it kind of like down in the hole, and I'm going to pry it up, and then this part was a little tricky on I did the other side already, so actually cheat and use a screwdriver. Okay, same thing. Make sure that those are in the holes and set. And bada bing, bada boom, minus the torque. That's how you do your 2014-ish Jeep Grand Cherokee brakes. Now don't forget, pump the pedal, because the first couple presses of that brake pedal is going to go to the floor. So pump the pedal before the car moves, get the wheels on, star pattern, and the lug nut torque on the wheels is 130 foot-pounds, and you can do it. Don't forget these caps. That's part of the reason this thing was so nice, but you can't put them on until they're torqued, okay? Enjoy, slackers.